Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, September 24th edition of Mapleton Township Council. And we have a very special and, well, somewhat special day today, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. If you can right now, please rise for O Canada. All right. Hey, declaration of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, so we do have a special day and then a somewhat special day. The first part of the special day is we have with us Cole Amy from Alma. Cole, I want you to come up to the front here. Cole Amy here is going to receive a bursary. Was this a gold medal for box lacrosse nationals? All right, Cole. So you're going to turn around, the camera's right there. You're going to talk and tell everybody what you did.
I won gold for Team Ontario for Canada, and I won gold for Riverhawk, which is Center Wellington Riverhawks, for Ontario nationally. Not nationally, sorry, for Ontario.
All right. Up here, Cole, we do have some a check for you. Actually, I think we'll end up giving it to your mom, but
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because mom probably, spent some money to help you.
Yeah.
Probably, but we're going to give it to you. Give it to your mom after. Cole, congratulations on your accomplishments. Hang on, let's.
That's the Ontario, and this one's the Canada. Wow.
That's totally amazing. Go on. You hang on that one. I'll hang on this one. We're going to have a picture here. Everybody just looks over here. Congratulations, Cole. Well, thank you. We were talking about last night some bursary awards, and it's always great to have young people receive awards for their accomplishments, and we're certainly happy as council to be able to present a little monetary support from the community for such great accomplishments in the community. So thank you once again, Cole. Did you pass that check to your mom yet? Just checking, okay. Confirmation of minutes. First, declaration of pecuniary interest. None? Good. Moved by Councillor Reid, second by Councillor Ottens, that the minutes of the Township of Mapleton Council meeting held on September 10th, 2024 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda. Any questions, comments? All in favor? That's carried. And Cole, you can leave. Your mom can leave. You don't have to stay. We're going to be here for a little while. Hey, we don't have any matters arising on the minutes. We have nothing under the Planning Act. Our first delegation, or only delegation today, would be Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. We've got Phil Beard here. Phil, are you speaking today? Or is Ed going to speak? Are you going to go tag team? Okay, well, welcome Phil and Ed up to the podium there. Hit the red button, and please give us your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, and guests. Yes, I'm tag teaming with Phil today to present to you the Maitland Valley Conservation Strategy. And I guess we have the slides up here. So why the strategy was developed, the Ministry of Natural Resources requires all conservation authorities to develop and implement a watershed strategy. The strategy must be submitted to the ministry by December 31st of 2024. Watershed municipality, or the ministry requires each conservation authority to consult with member municipalities and other stakeholders and obtain their feedback on the proposed strategy. Maitland Valley has decided to base our strategy on a 3-year work plan that was developed in October of last year. This work plan outlines Maitland Valley Conservation's major activities that will be undertaken from 2024 to 2026. We have taken this approach because Maitland Valley Conservation Authority's agreements for services and programs ends in June of 2026. There's a summary of the watershed strategy in your council package. Since you have already had a chance to read the summary, Phil and I will review some of the major activities and get your feedback on any activities of interest or that you would like to have more information on. And I'll let Phil take over.
I don't know where the slide went, but can you go back to the slides? Sure. Hard to top a gold medal, but we'll try and do our best here and make it as exciting as we can. Next slide, please. So we're fortunate in this part of the world to have some of the best productive farmland, some of the finest hardwood forests. The Maitland River is one of the best smallmouth bass fishing rivers in Ontario, southwestern Ontario, and of course we have Lake Huron, which is valued for recreation, tourism, drinking water. So Maitland Valley's established the following vision statement, and that's working for a healthy environment, because we want to keep all these natural resources healthy and productive, because it is the backbone of our economy. Next slide, please. So our mission is providing leadership, and that's one of our key words, to protect and enhance water, forests, and soil. And the members have established the following overall objectives. Number one, which is helping our member municipalities reduce the potential for loss of life, property damage, and social disruption in flood and erosion-prone areas. Assisting our member municipalities and landowners to develop and implement soil and water conservation plans to keep soil and nutrients on the land and out of the watercourses in Lake Huron. We also want to ensure that our conservation areas set high standards for conservation practices and are safe for the public to use. And last but not least, we want to ensure that we have financial stability so that we can help our member municipalities to develop healthy, resilient, and a prosperous watershed. Next slide, please. So I'll just go through some of the highlights of our corporate priorities. And the first one is the Healthy Lake Huron Initiative, which was established by the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Agriculture and Food in 2010 to work with all levels of government, federal, provincial, county, health units, 5 conservation authorities, Environment Canada, Department of Fisheries, to improve the health of the watersheds that drain into Lake Huron, and also to help improve the health of Lake Huron. So that initiative has made it through numerous governments over the years. We've almost lost it a few times, but each year our MPP, Lisa Thompson, has been a champion in making sure that it continues. So we want to ensure it continues as well, because no level of government has the resources needed to do what needs to be done in Lake Huron. The second priority for corporate services is in 2026, we've got to come back to you and renew our agreement for programs and services. So this is a new requirement by the provincial government that every 4 to 5 years we've got to come back to you and say, what services and programs do you want us to deliver? So that's our new reality. We're also just finished adopting an asset management plan for all our critical equipment and infrastructure. Number 6, please. So in terms of our flood and erosion safety services, we have over $1 billion worth of development and infrastructure in areas that are at risk from flooding and erosion across the watershed. $750 million of that assessment that's in the risk areas is along the Lake Huron shoreline. About $250 million in the 15 flood damage centers that we have across the watershed. Next slide, please. And the province has given us a number of mandatory things that we must do. Number one is we have to do an asset management plan for the flood and erosion control structures in our watershed, which is in Listowel and Godridge. We have to do a natural hazards outreach and education plan with our member municipalities and the public. And we also have to find new cellular-based equipment for our flood forecast system because our current provider is no longer providing new equipment. Next slide, please. So moving on to our conservation areas, we have 28 conservation areas across the watershed, 4,500 acres of land and water to look after. Next slide, please. And two of the mandatory things that we have to do by the end of December is we have to develop a conservation land strategy and an inventory. And within that strategy, we have to identify any lands that are within the urban boundaries that might be able to be used for development. Fortunately, we have no lands that fit that criteria. We're also working on continuing to decommission surplus infrastructure and, of course, to ensure our conservation areas are safe for the public to use. Next slide, please. So just moving on to stewardship, which in an agricultural watershed we consider to be one of our most important services, working with landowners. Our focus is on restoring the health of rivers and forests and identifying where rural stormwater management systems are needed and to work with farmers to improve soil health on agricultural land. The areas in greatest need of natural cover, and this is a good example of it, actually it is in, I guess it's in North Perth, sorry, not in Mapleton, is to restore natural cover in floodplains, river valleys, and along watercourses. And we've got approximately 16,000 acres and about 1,500 kilometers of stream buffers in the watershed. And I won't tell you how long that's going to take to do. Next slide, please. For rural stormwater management, we're identifying the areas that have steep slopes that are used for agriculture, and we're also encouraging the use of cover crops to improve soil health, to keep the land covered over the winter. The greatest potential for loss of soil is now over the winter months because we are getting warmer, wetter winters with also more potential for freezing rain as well. Next slide, please. Watershed health. Our focus in watershed health is to assess whether the health of the watershed soil, rivers, and forests are improving or declining. You can't manage what you don't measure. This work will help us determine where we need to focus our efforts going forward. We all have limited resources, so we need to determine where we can get the most impact with the resources that we have. We've also established science advisory committees. We want to ensure we're using the best science available to guide our watershed health work. We've contacted scientists and practitioners to help us develop sound approaches and to help us evaluate the information that we're gathering related to the health of rivers and forests. So we've encouraged the staff in all our service areas to work with leading researchers related to their field so that they're keeping up to date with changes in science. In the U.S., the soil conservation districts are tied to land-grant universities. We don't have that connection up here, so we have to establish our own linkages for science. We're also doing a lot of citizen science. We're working with volunteers to help us collect information regarding the health of forests so that we can cover more of the watershed than we could with our own resources. We're learning that people are eager to help and they're interested in learning about the health of the watershed as well. Next slide, please. Last but not least, drinking water source protection. This is a map of the drinking water systems in the Maitland watershed. Our focus is on working with member municipalities to protect the sources of municipal drinking water across the watershed, which ranges from wells to the intake at Godridge from Lake Huron. Next slide, please. So yeah, there's going to be updates to some of the wellhead protection areas in the watershed over the next 3 years, Lucknow, Century Heights in Saltford, and in Minto. Last slide, please, and I'll turn it over to Ed to close things off.
Thank you, Phil. So in conclusion, Maitland Valley Conservation Authority would appreciate receiving the municipality's feedback on strategy by September 30th, which is coming up very shortly. So if we have any questions, we could certainly entertain them. Thank you.
Thank you both for your presentation. Council, any questions for the delegation? Yeah, I thought you might. Go ahead, Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Ed. Although Maitland Valley really just touches a tiny corner of Mapleton Township, the kind of the demographic landscape is very similar in many ways, apart from the shorelines. So I had a couple of questions on some of the work you've done that might be relevant to the wider Mapleton Township. In the past, we had a dedicated forester for this area that was responsible for a lot of the tree planting. I just wondered, like, how many foresters you would have in Maitland Valley Conservation, and what their role would be.
Watershed forester. We have she is a professional forester, because now to do tree planting, you have to have a professional forester to develop the plans according to the Forestry Act. So that's why we have that one person. That's why we have a professional forester. Before, we had to contract that service out.
The other one is, what kind of initiatives or incentives do you have to promote tree planting or other kind of ecological restoration practices throughout the watershed?
Promotion, or?
Initiatives or incentives do you have for landowners to?
Well, we're fortunate to have the Wellington County Clean Water Project and the Huron Clean Water Project, and now there's a Perth Clean Water Project. So every county in the watershed now has a funding program, which we help to deliver, except in Perth, but we still work with them, to help promote tree planting, ecological restoration with landowners across the watershed. Yeah, those are the main programs. We also apply, of course, to the federal 2 billion tree program. Every program going, we apply to it. Department of Fisheries has money for stream buffering, so we have 4 people working in stewardship. So that is, with 80% of our watershed in agriculture, we need to be working with farmers to help them with soil health, forest health, and restoring natural areas and rural stormwater management. Those are our big sort of system changes that we're working on.
Microphone again, please. Microphone.
One is, like, when implementing these projects, what would you consider the biggest barriers that you come across?
Farmland, getting them to give up land that's in crops right now to put trees in. That's, I guess that's one of the biggest barriers. Although that is starting to change, where you have floodplains, as in that picture that I showed you, that where the crops are getting washed out more frequently, then there seems to be more receptivity in those areas to take them out of crop protection and to put them back into natural areas because of the number of damages they're running into. I know of one farmer that had his crop washed out 3 times, so finally he gave it up for a buffer. And we were able to give him an incentive of $250 a year to help cover the lost income that he was getting from that land, and 100% covering the cost of the trees and getting them planted for him. So that helped with that, him to make that transition.
Thank you. The last one is throughout the watershed, amongst the kind of the counties and the townships, are there any kind of policies or bylaws you've come across from any of the municipalities that really support your work?
Yeah, all the municipalities and counties do natural environment planning. So they're identifying areas that are already in natural cover and areas that are along water courses. So yeah, that definitely is a help. and they certainly promote our programs, so I don't know if that's addressing, yeah. I don't know if you saw in the package, we also have a major carbon footprint initiative. So we're working with companies and and counties across the watershed municipalities. Sorry. So yeah, our carbon footprint initiative works with companies and municipalities and counties to reduce their carbon footprint and also to work on carbon sequestration initiatives. So a lot of the companies are smaller. They don't know where to turn for leadership. So that is something that our Conservation Authority developed and has been going for 12 years now. And one of the leaders, business leaders for us is Molesworth Farm Supply. They've built the most energy efficient mill in North America because they want to reduce their carbon footprint. They're moving to hybrid vehicles. They're looking at going to hydrogen fueled trucks. So that's one of the other major initiatives that we're working with, because as you know, climate change is not just about planting trees.
All right, other members of council with questions or comments? We'll get back to Martin. Patrick Kelly, you had something to say?
Yeah, just through you, Mayor, further to your question, Councillor Tamlin, at the municipal level as well, under infrastructure asset management, natural asset management is really starting to take off across the country. I know internally Amman is already looking in the next iteration of our asset management plan to include a lot of the natural infrastructure that the municipality owns as part of that process. So there is definitely a lot more attention than there has been historically internally.
Thank you. Anything further from council? Mr. Tamlin, you got more? I know you do. Let's go ahead.
Maybe just to follow up on that then. So is that kind of like an offset program then for companies that can, no?
Offset the burning of fossil fuels by planting trees. We got to do two things. We got to eliminate our use of fossil fuels, and we got to put more carbon back in the ground, because a third of the greenhouse gases are from deforestation, loss of organic matter. The other 2/3 are from burning of fossil fuels. We got to do, it's got to be a two-pronged approach.
Thank you. I have a question. So you talked about cover crops and how to reduce soil loss because of where our weather patterns are, and our soil is being eroded from our current weather patterns, especially in the wintertime, being blown around. So cover crops are very important to have right across the both watersheds that we have here in the township. So, you know, you talked about the tree planting to try to save the soil and the crops. So you're talking about that one farmer that finally decided to plant some trees and save that piece of land and put in the trees, and that's going to help with the soil erosion. What about the nutrients? Because the nutrients are really tough with the number of tiling gets done now, and that goes into the water streams, and we see a lot more of the lakes having these algae blooms. So what are we doing to tackle that?
Well, what we've been working on with that is through rural stormwater management to get that runoff and capture it into little wetlands and have it polished in those wetlands before it reaches the watercourse. So we've got a major demonstration project just south of Wingham called the Scott Municipal Drain Restoration Project, where all the runoff from that farm used to go directly into the municipal drain, and they used to have to clean it out all the time. So now we've put in stormwater management ponds and berms and wetlands to catch all that runoff and polish it, and then before it can reach the watercourse. And that's one of the ways you can, instead of the tile drains going directly into the watercourse, they go into the wetland before it. And we've done a smaller project like that in the Middle Maitland upstream of Listowel as well. So yeah, we need to catch that water in wetlands that can treat it before it hits the watercourse.
It must be quite the challenge when you have, you know, farmers are great at producing crops in our communities. Sometimes they take down the trees so they can make more farmland, and sometimes they take out the natural marshes and watercourses. Do we have any incentives out there for our farming community, our agriculture community, to maintain those elements that we need to keep in our community to polish, as you talk about, the water before it gets into our watershed? Do we have any incentives for them to not fill in a marsh?
Not enough, but the way we've been approaching it with farmers and even the Ministry of Agriculture, it's not about making money, it's about avoided costs. So if you don't do anything, as in the Scott Farm, you're going to lose all that soil, and it's going to end up in the municipal drain, and then you have to dig it out, put it back on the farm so it can get washed out again. So it's about, we've been explaining about this is avoided cost that you can, if you do this, it will avoid you losing your natural resources. So it is a challenge to change the sort of the culture and the mindset around how to adopt new systems. But as we get more demonstration projects, as we see more of these intense rainfall events, we're seeing the lights go on and people wanting to say, you know, let's try something different. In the Garvey Glen watershed, we were working with 40 farmers, and they had all done their own individual stormwater management works. And it took 2 major rainstorms where it washed out everything out before they said, we need to work together on a system that's going to stop this going forward. That took 15 years to get to that point. So we're not going to change everybody overnight, Martin. So good luck in your new position.
All right, anything further from members of council then? Anything from staff? Thank you both very much. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Marin.
Through your worship. At one point, you mentioned decommissioning surplus infrastructure. What exactly does that mean?
We have buildings and dams that we don't really need anymore. So we used to run a maple syrup operation. The federal government gave us money to get into these things. The building's been sitting there for years. We don't need it anymore. So we had a nature center building that was not in good condition. So we don't have a education program anymore, so we took that building down. So any buildings that we're not using, we're either leasing out. In terms of the Galbraith Conservation Area, it was surplus to our needs. We've leased it to North Perth, who are developing it as a day camp and a number of other things. So we've gone through all our infrastructure to see what's critical and needed and what is not, so that we have more resources to focus on our priority activities. Hasn't made everybody happy, but.
Any further? Okay. Thank you both very much for coming today, and if we have anything further to add, we'll send it to you. Thank you very much. The resolution here moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Reid, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information a delegation of Maitland Valley Conservation Authority regarding the MVCA watershed strategy. All in favor? It's carried. We have no committee minutes. And next up, we have 9.1. This is where we talk about some declaration of vacancy. Mr. Tamlin being his very last day on council today. And Mr. Barron, you have a report for us? Do you want to talk to that? Or Mr. Clerk, I should say, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not much to add to this particular report other than that the obvious, that is Councillor Tamlin is disqualified from retaining his council seat because of his co-employment with the Township of Mapleton and the Township of Centre Wellington. So the province has, through the Municipal Act, has set 60 days for us to take action. But thankfully, Councillor Tamlin has resigned as of this coming Friday, which gives us until the November 26th meeting of council, which is really helpful, so we appreciate that. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And Mr. Tamlin, I'm going to give you a minute to say something. I know we talked a little bit last night, and you and I had many conversations over the last, well, even before you were elected, when you were running for council, and then when you're on council. This position is well suited for you, sir. It is something that we all know you'll be good at. Just having you on council these last 2 years and the passion you have for the environment is shown up in every conversation we've had and in all your comments that you make here at Township. We appreciate you, sir, for the last 2 years that you've dedicated to this community on council, and we look forward to what you are going to provide us in the future when it comes to the environment. As we have put together an environmental advisory committee, which you spearheaded, and we appreciate that, and we expect even more from you and that committee in the future. Other council members, comments? Before, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Davidson. I would like to just express my congratulations to you personally as well. It's been fun doing the first term of council together and all the learning you and I have been doing in our first terms, and it's been a pleasure to work with you.
Mr. Tamlin?
Gonna make me cry, stop it.
No crying allowed.
No crying allowed. Yeah, thanks, everyone. I've definitely appreciated this journey. There's been so much to learn, and such a supportive environment, especially my fellow councillors that have been on council for a while and know the ropes, and getting to understand all the intricacies and all the moving parts of a township. From someone who's never sat on council before, it's been incredible to get to know that. It's also been incredible to witness how dynamic this township is, and the relationship and the quality of the staff and the councillors and mayor and CAO and everyone who kind of works together on these things. I'm grateful for the people I've met, the connections I've made, and the learning that's taken place as well. And I really look forward to continue my public service, working for both Central Wellington and the Mapleton Township in a climate capacity.
Thank you. Anybody stab? Mr. Barron, comments or?
Through your worship, just, yeah, congratulations, but Mayor said it best. If you can put two and two together, a job and a person, I can't think of anything, any job and any person that would match better than what you're embarking, the journey you're embarking on with that role. And yeah, we're extremely happy for you and looking forward to working with you.
We're going to do a video after, and we're going to post it out there about, yeah, it's going to be fun, Martin. I'm going to put you on the spot. You're going to do a video. That's right. Resolution moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Ottens, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information Clerk's Report CL 2024-11 entitled Declaration of Vacancy, and that Township Mapleton Council declare the seat of Councillor Martin Tamlin to be vacant as of Friday, September 27th, 2024. All in favor? Are you opposing? Put your hand up. All right, he's in. All right. It's almost like you oppose this. You can't oppose it, Martin. You're still on council. You get the vote on it. It's not easy, I know. The next item up is options to fill the vacant councillor seat. Now that he's vacating the seat, we have to try to figure out a way to fill this seat. Mr. Clerk, you have a report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, by that second meeting in November, the council must do one of two things: either pass a bylaw to call an election, a by-election, or they must appoint someone from the township that's eligible to be a councillor, a replacement councillor. If council chooses the appointment route, they again have two choices, which is a direct appointment by council, and the second option is appointment by a call for applications. Staff, as you know from the report, are recommending a call for appointment by application. However, it's council's prerogative.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The resolution here moved by Councillor Otten, seconded by Councillor Reid, that Township and Mapleton Council receive for information Clerk's Report 2024-12 entitled Options to Fill the Vacant Councillor Seat for the remainder of the 2022-2026 term of council, and that council directs staff to proceed with option appoint by call for applications, and further that the clerk be directed to bring a report to council on October 8th, 2024, outlining the specific procedures for implementing council's chosen strategy. Questions, comments from council to the clerk about this process? I know that we did this a few years back on county council when Senator Rob Black left county council, and then we made an appointment of county council from the application process. So it does work quite well. Councillor Mary Lloyd was appointed, and Mary is still on county council after being elected a couple times after that. So, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Next up on the agenda, we have the Ontario Renewable Energy Opportunities. Mr. Barron?
Thank you, through your worship. So I realize this might be a sensitive issue when we discuss it, but a little bit of history. It sounds like the Ford government is looking to reintroduce renewable energy in the form of windmills and turbines. I think they've realized that the current grid will not support the needs of the future, and they're looking for alternative ways to produce additional electricity. In 2013, as you can see from the report package, there was a resolution, and we are on the list of being an unwilling host. That being said, it would be, we would appreciate anyway, maybe a conversation about reconsidering. If it is as we know, if it is the will of the provincial government, whether we, at some point, whether we like it or not, it will come. I think we're being proactive and trying to decide what we need to do. This company, Intergex, called us and are interested in talking to some of our farmers within the wind kind of study area. And we kind of put a stop to it just until council has a chance to discuss what avenue they'd like to take. And I think the decision might be very quick. If we're still an unwilling host, then we move on. But if not, I think there's, doing a little bit of research, there are some municipalities that are taking advantage of these turbines and windmills in the form of grants from the companies. I know there's one that's, receiving about $500,000. Now that's a bigger kind of footprint of windmills. But one of the things that I did ask the representative of Intergex is, we because there's no property taxes on these windmills, we need, are you open to community grants for community groups, form a dividend towards the host municipalities, and they're absolutely willing to discuss and take those into consideration. And again, depending how tonight goes, they are absolutely willing to come and speak to council as a delegate, as well as in the form of a public meeting. So I guess what we're looking for is, are we willing to take that next step? Or are we looking to stay an unwilling host?
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Thank you for laying that out and the question there. Council? Your thoughts, your comments? Councillor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, I know that's a really sensitive local issue. I would be interested in hearing from local people, now that we've had them present. There was always talk about health issues and other concerns, and now that they've been, I don't know, how long has it been, 15 years, 20 years? What the long-term ramifications have been on people living near them. And I'd also be interested in asking the wind turbine companies why they don't adopt the more European approach where they put them in the lakes, where the water produces more wind naturally, and where they're closer to the cities, where they could feed directly into the grid closer to the users, because that makes a lot more sense, and that seems to be the European approach, and why they don't do that here in Ontario where we have so much water.
Councillor Tablin.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Yeah, I think we all understand the need for more energy, and wind and other kind of renewable sources are the way to go as far as that transition. So that's kind of not the question, but when the resolution was made, there was significant negative health effects of local residents, and there are legitimate concerns with windmills. So I echo what Councillor Ottens was suggesting of actually first talking to the people that surround the Conestoga wind farms and have experienced over the last 12, 15 years, and what their experience is and whether things have continued. I know one of the concerns was property values as well, but I think that's kind of leveled as the years have gone on. In some places they're actually been worth more because they've subsidized the farm or whatever as well. So in some cases they're desirable. And also there's a setback regulations. I think it's 550 meters away from houses and away from roads as well. Just wondering like where that would fit in. Maybe that fits in any part of our township, I'm not sure. But, you know, where is that wind tunnel avenue? Where would we be looking to see, you know, if it's feasible before big public consultation? Just gather more information.
Thank you. Councillor Reid?
I also understand this being a sensitive issue, looking back at what we decided in 2013. But again, that's 10 years ago, so I do agree with getting some more information, like, to date, of the issues that people are having. Are they still having issues? Is it resolved? And public input, absolutely, to determine if this is something that we would even want to see in Mapleton from a public's perspective.
All right. I can see where this is going. I'm on the other hand on the other end of things. We had quite a public consultation back in 2013, and I don't believe that we should be changing that at this point in time because a company has decided to come forward and start calling municipalities so they could be the first in line to put them into the community. I've heard nothing from anyone in the community saying they want to open this up, and I haven't heard anything from the provincial government saying we want you to be a willing host. So I'm on the other side of things, that I do not believe that we should move forward with this until just because one company has come forward and said they want to do this. So that's my 2 cents for you. All right, anything further? Go ahead.
So through your worship, so I agree, one company reached out, but it is the EISO that's been tasked by the provincial government to do the procurement, and I'm assuming there's several. But to your point, the federal government, or sorry, the provincial government, the Doug Ford government is pushing for this. So it's not just the company, it just happens to be the company that called us, but I just wanted to make sure that.
Totally understand that, Mr. Baird, but I haven't heard anything from the provincial government coming and telling, you know, Mapleton, open up your doors. So I'll call the question then. All in favor? Oh, I read the resolution for you. My apologies. Resolution moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Ottens, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information CAO Report CL 2024-10, dated September 24th, 2024, regarding Ontario renewable energy opportunities, and that the Township Mapleton Council discuss the option of remaining an unwilling host or consider an alternative approach and explore allowing the erection of windmills in our township. And further, that if council decides to explore the possibility of allowing windmills, it is suggested that staff be directed to gather public input to determine if there is interest from a public perspective to become a willing host. So there's a couple items in here. So we discussed whether we want to remain unwilling host or not. It sounds like council would like to have staff explore the opportunity, gather public input and determine the interest from the public perspective on being a willing host again. That's what I'm hearing here. Mr. Barron, can we remove that middle piece altogether and just do the last piece? If council is, the middle piece is basically saying about remaining an unwilling host. We can't answer that question until the public meeting part down the bottom. So if we take out that middle piece and that completely, we can just have staff do some research. I need a motion to take that out, and I'll move that motion to take that middle piece out. I need a seconder to take that middle piece out. Sorry, Councillor Reid? Okay. So a motion's on the table then to remove that middle piece, so then staff will have the opportunity to go and do research if we pass the rest of the resolution. So I'll call the question on removing that middle piece. All in favor of removing that middle piece? That's passed. Then I'll read the resolution again. That Township Mapleton Council received for information CAO report regarding Ontario renewable energy opportunities, and further that if council further that, take out the if, council decides to explore the possibility of allowing windmills, that staff be directed to gather public input to determine if there is an interest from the public perspective to become a willing host. Does that work for council? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Just a rewording of that.
Yeah, it needs to be reworded.
Yeah, I mean, just the suggestion is to kind of approach the community that, that are directly affected by the Conestoga wind farms, and to gather more information from the company itself on potential location and mitigation of any, just to gather more information, which can be, yeah. So just the wording is like, we're not asking a public input, like we're going to like a specific target group rather than, does that make sense? I guess a public, but you know what I mean, rather than a wider public. Yeah, you certainly will on this one.
How about this, Councillor Tamlin, and further that council, we could take out the part, council decides to explore the possibility of allowing windmills, take that part out and just put, and further that staff be directed to gather input to determine if there is interest from public perspective to become a willing host. Leave it at that, and then staff know the direction is to contact the right people. Okay, so take this. And further that staff be directed to gather input to determine if there is interest from a public perspective to become a willing host. So, Councillor Tamlin, you want to move that change? It says, and further that staff be directed to gather input to determine if there is an interest from a public perspective to become a willing host.
Sorry, I feel as though we're gathering information rather than a bigger perspective of becoming a willing host or not. I think we're just kind
You
of
can't
more.
talk to the company until we decide we're going to be
Well,
willing.
no, I know that, but I mean, okay, I think it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
You'll move that change then? Then
Yeah.
staff know what the direction is from
Yeah,
council.
yeah.
I need a seconder to move that then? Councillor Ottens, thank you. All in favor of that change? All right. It's Councillor Martin and Councillor Ottens. All right, so we know that, do I need to read it all, or we got it now? We're good? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Next up, we have the Finance Department, proposed fees and charges 2025. Heather, are you presenting this one?
So through you, your mayor, it's basically just a report that's pretty straightforward. A lot of the fees and charges that we are just going up by the cost of living. And those that are going up more than that, I've noted in there, or I've mentioned it in the report. There's a couple of them that had changes that were pre sort of decided by council, and they were being phased in, these charges. And so I've noted that. There is a section in the wastewater bill, and I want to make note of that. It's going up more than the cost of living, up to about 5.5% for the wastewater. Traditionally, everywhere I looked, most of the municipalities had wastewater rates higher than the water rates. And our municipality has priced it lower. And now that we're seeing like line maintenance and maintenance for our infrastructure, and those costs are coming up. And in order to make this water revenue neutral, and to cover the cost of not only the services, but also the infrastructure to support it, we would need to raise the wastewater rates a little bit more than the regular cost of living.
Thank you, Heather.
So, yeah.
Anything further?
No?
Okay, questions then from members of council on the report? All right, I have a few,
Okay.
because we're talking about water and wastewater, and we know that our rates are quite high already, and we hear a lot of feedback from the community on our water and wastewater rates. And are you on water and wastewater? Are you on the public, you on yourself? Your house is, you're out in the country. So I think I'm the only one on this table that's on, with Councillor Martin not here, that is actually on these water and wastewater rates. So it does say here in the report that the infrastructure reserve funds are shorted about $40,000? Is that?
Yeah.
Is that $40,000 per year or $40,000 over the past 2 years?
For the past 2 years, they've been short. And so now, we did have a surplus 1 year, but we're trending towards that if we keep the rates at the same rate, we can expect to have at least another 40, and I think even higher than that, because of how we're seeing some of the line maintenance fees getting higher, costs getting higher.
So, sorry, I may have not asked the question. Are we losing 20,000 a year, or are we losing 40,000 a year? Because it says 40,000 over the past 2 years.
So that came out of the transfers per year, and that was shorted from the transfers that we would have transferred to our capital reserve fund.
Okay. Now, we used, you have 5.5% increase is what the report says. And you've given some examples of using a monthly consumption of 11.2 cubic meters of water. And this would be a proposed adjustment of about $7.62. How do we come up with 11.2? Because if I look at my own water consumption rates, and there's only 2 of us in our house, we are above the 11.2. The lowest we possibly get is 15, but most of the time we're around 20 and around the 20 mark. How do we come to with 11.2?
So what I did is I just took an average of the amount of consumption that we have and the number of meters. So I guess some people are much lower. I think that when John was doing it years ago, he had actually 10.2, so I went up a little higher.
Okay, so I just know that from and I took a couple reports of the water, wastewater, and with the difference with the percentage, with the prices that we are going to be proposing for my own use in my household, and this is going to be a lot of households in the township, that the difference for me is 14 to 15% on my bills, not the 5.5. So that's a big number for just jumping ahead, and nothing against your numbers. Your numbers are correct in this report. I'm just saying that you've got the average user of 11.2 cubic meters, and that's great for the average user, but for a lot of people that have 2 people in the household, it's going to be more than 11.2 cubic meters, and that's going to mean a larger jump in the actual cost. For example, one of mine would be $18.42, another one was $15.77 more per billing cycle. So I just wanted council to understand that number does fluctuate in depending on how much water you use. My final question is, how many water and wastewater users do we currently have on our system? And if you can break that also down, not just the total amount, but also break that down to how many industrial users compared to residential users?
Okay, so we have 41 accounts that are larger than 5/8, and then we have 967 that are residential, that are small, the smaller meter size. And I think that is part of the problem, that we are carrying this infrastructure and we only have 1,008 users.
Yeah, that hasn't changed much over the last number of years. And that has always been our issue, is having that low number, and the majority of the bulk of our costs end up on the residential user, which is why we hear a lot from our residential users about the cost. Patrick?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Davidson, I think that's a very valid point. Spreading significant infrastructure costs over a smaller denominator is going to, there's only one spot for it to come from. The rates are going to obviously be impacted by that. I am intrigued a bit by I've looked at the Heather's math and calculations numerous times, and what's within the report is accurate as for average consumption and the impact. So I'd be interested, possibly offline, we can look into some additional, based on different usage amounts, what that impact is, because that seems to be quite high, on the high side, the numbers you were speaking of. But essentially, I think the second part of your question is the more critical one, that with a user base limited to 1,000 or around 1,000 users, infrastructure costs are significant. We've seen that within the capital programs, within long-term financial planning, asset management planning, and spreading that cost over 1,000 people is going to be a significant hit. At the same time, I will note that, and I've noted it in numerous presentations on water and wastewater budgets, water is by far the cheapest commodity that you can buy in this world, and by far the most important commodity that you can consume in this world. So that's not to say we should put the rates wherever we want them. We put them at a reasonable amount to ensure we have funding in place to maintain and expand infrastructure where needed. But we can come back with some more calculations based on different average or different monthly consumption amounts to see what the impact is. But I'm confident in the numbers that are put forth here.
Any other questions from council then? The resolution is moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin, that the Township of Mapleton Council receive Finance Report FIN 2024-24 regarding the proposed fees and charges 2025, and that staff be directed to present the proposed fees and charges bylaw at a public meeting on October 8th, 2024. All in favor? Carried. Moving on to the next one, it's Q2 operating and capital program updates. Patrick?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Davidson. Not a lot to go over here beyond what's in the report. Quarterly reports are a point in time throughout the year. This one is somewhat delayed just to me coming on board in the early part of July. So generally a Q2 report would come out a little sooner than this. But as the report outlines, we're in reasonable financial shape for the current year based on the budget, sitting at around a $330,000 surplus. That's just assuming that tax levy collections are only at half of the entire year. So using the same multiples last year, we would have been sitting in a deficit position at this time of the year. So that means that staff are maintaining control over operating expenses and bringing in revenues similar to what we had forecasted. The report does break it down into by department and then also in functional areas, so council and the public are able to see where the spending occurs across departments or across functions. And then the second part of the report gives a breakdown of the existing capital program. Might be a new format from what council's used to. It does have a column of carry forward dollars that weren't spent from previous years, what was included in the budget in 2024, which gives you a good understanding of how much funds are available to be spent. Of that, we've spent approximately $2.1 million of the 15.4 available. That's as of June 30th. I want to underscore that of this year. There's been a significant amount of work. If you look around outside this building and on our roads, a lot of work has happened over the late part of Q2 and the early parts of Q3. So you'll see that number come up quite a bit in future reporting. But it's there for council's information, just to know where we're at from a financial standpoint this time of the year, and happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. The resolution is moved by Councillor Tamlin, second by Councillor Ottens, that Township Mapleton Council receive for information Finance Report 2024-25 regarding the Q2 operating and capital program updates. Questions then for Mr. Kelly? Thank you for the report, sir. It was a good report. And yeah, it's a little bit different than what we used to, but I actually like how it's laid out and it's very clear. Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Moving into approval of bylaws. Item number 10, moved by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Tamlin, that bylaws numbered 2024-035, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2024-033, being a bylaw to establish development charges for the Corporation Township of Mapleton, and 2024-046, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2010-080, being a zoning bylaw for the Township of Mapleton, be hereby read a first, second, and third time. Finally passed this 24th day of September 2024. Any questions or comments? All in favor? It's carried. Did I see a hand go up there, Clerk? I thought you were voting. Were you voting? I thought you saw a hand go up there. We have no correspondence with council's directions. There are 3 items there for council's information. Ministry of Agriculture, and then Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee, and the Ministry of Natural Resources. Any comments or questions on any of those 3? Councillor Reid.
Through you, Mayor, I just wanted to touch on 12.2 that speaks to the Drayton Cadet Playground. Are we foreseeing any delays to this project that they're working on with this information?
And I'll leave that to Tim. Tim, come up, take the podium.
Through you, Mayor. So I have been in contact with Heather Smalls, our township community representative, and we've been ironing out some of the sort of points that have been about, like the playground surface, and if we have to redevelop the access to the playground, being that this is just a replacement of the structure. I have revised the report just to reflect it as a replacement. And then on December 5th, there is the AOD, or the AAC meeting that we will be attending, and hopefully we can have some further direction from them.
Thank you, Tim. Other questions, comments? All right. Any notices of motion today? We do have that one notice of provision about development charges. Any other business? Item 15, other business. Okay. And we're moving into a closed session then.